Hello from Brighton in the UK. Welcome to Eclectic Spacewalk Conversations. I'm your host, Nicholas McKay, and today I'm joined by George Poor, founder and academic dean of Campus Co-Evolve, who is, quote, a strategic learning partner to visionary leaders and analysts of deep transformation around the world. Welcome to Conversations, George.
Thank you.
So first off, originally, where were you born?
I was born in Budapest, Hungary, I don't even dare to say, long time ago.
And so, what did you want to be when you grew up?
What did I want to be when I grew up?
Yes.
That's a fantastic question because my mom always asked the same question.
Okay.
And I remember I said things like, I want to be a firefighter because I had a little toy, a firefighter
Sure.
car. But my mom wanted, oh no, it's not good. You should be a doctor or a lawyer, something like that. Because at that time, my parents' generation, they imagined that when the little Yuri grows up, he will have one profession, like every normal person, and that's it for a life.
Mm-hmm.
It was not like nowadays people are changing these professional identities. So, yeah, it's a good question what I wanted to. It kept changing for me also.
Okay, so well then, coming off that, who and what were your biggest influences? Was it thinkers, artists, authors? Like what made you, who were your biggest influences?
As I grew up?
Yeah.
Well, you will be surprised, but if I tell you that I was raised by communist parents in communist Hungary, then it may not be such a big surprise that my influencers were people like Spartacus and revolutionaries of the past, and including Marx, and I like to read novels of his life, things like that. I grew out that, but they had an influence on my thinking of becoming R.evolutionary.
Of course. And then, of course, as you can see, this giant bookshelf, you kept up with at least some of the reading, as you say. And then who would say, you said in our conversations before that you're still big into science fiction, though.
Oh, yes. Science fiction has a great impact on my thinking because life imitates science fiction. Frequently, the science fiction writers come up with great ideas that then it's implemented. And of course, they are informed with scientific discoveries. So if I want to get on the edge of the imagination of what is possible, I'm reading science fiction, not as much for the technical gizmos, but I'm curious of what those science fiction authors imagine about the social arrangements of people in the future.
And then those kind of, you can draw on those into the present, those possibilities of sorts. Do any of them stick out into your memory right now?
Yeah. Bruce Sterling is one of the writers who, because a lot of those writers they write about dystopias, and the few is describing positive possibilities. And so Bruce Sterling's book, Islands in the Net, I remember that because it describes the kind of commons-oriented enterprise without hierarchy, where people are equals and they work without bosses in a self-organizing manner. I read that long time ago, but it had an impact on my thinking because, of course, I'm also reading not just science fiction, but professional literature about the same. But when I'm reading a science fiction, it gives texture to the ideas. It makes it more tangible how it can really happen.
Sure. Are you familiar with the current science fiction writer Ted Chiang? because he is more like the utopic vision. Because if we're flooded with dystopic visions,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's right.
Well, if not, you need to check that. We'll talk after. But so after university, you went on to work with some of the biggest organizations in the world, like Greenpeace, Intel, HP, the National Health Services in the UK, and then the UN. So can you tell us some of the highlights of projects maybe you were most proud of in that period?
Well, it was not quite after university because I was kicked out from the university in the 1966. That was the beginning of my sovereign life. Mm-hmm. And by sovereign life, I mean when I started independently making meaning of my environment, society, what is really happening here, and then making my choices about how do I respond to that. And since Hungary was a so-called socialist country, I say so-called because it was more like a state capitalism. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I got into conflict with the government because I wanted to stand up for my belief, and it was the 60s, the student movement all over the world, and so we had our little student movement in Hungary, which landed me 20 months in jail, and a couple of years later, when I got out, I got exiled from Hungary. So from the university, it was not a straight moving into consulting work. First, I had to finish my degree at the University of Paris after I got exiled. And then I moved to India to study meditation, then moved to California, 1981, and it's there where I got my first computer, became a computer consultant, not on the technical side, but how companies can use computer networking to connect the minds and hearts of their people. So that's how I got into corporate consulting on the side of culture change. How can companies become more collaborative? Of course, every manager is interested in that. How can the workforce become more collaborative? What I was interested is bringing in the technology, the tools that creates kind of liberated zones within the hierarchical structures. So that's why I started working with communities of practice. That's a different kind of organizational form that is not responsible to the hierarchy. Right. It's self-organizing and
so more decentralized in nature.
Exactly.
And so not to pry, but obviously that prison sentence was not in your profile. I don't think you're necessarily promoting that, but I mean, you don't have to answer as much as you want, but what was that like? You know, kind of like going to prison for something that you believed in.
Yeah. Well, since my upbringing was a revolutionary upbringing, so for me it was natural. I knew that when I start organizing the movement, that it can happen, that they will arrest us, and they convinced me with the official accusation, anti-state conspiracy.
Wow.
That's what they labeled the student movement.
Well, there's not really higher that you can go other than internationally against your own government, though, in a sense of, you know. So you mentioned that after that you finished your degree at the University of Paris. And right now you're currently a faculty member at Meridian University, which is also in California. So you have former academic posts at the University of Paris, UC Berkeley, and the London School of Economics. So how has academia changed in that time since you graduated and then now, obviously, in your current teaching position?
Well, when I was a junior lecturer in the University of Paris, because after I got my degree, they kept me there at the sociology department to teach, and I got quite rapidly disgusted with the academic life because of a lot of politicking, lot of competition, and lots of ego infighting in the departments. So when I went to India, I still had my employment at the University of Paris. I just took some vacation. But in India, I got into meditation, and I felt that the inner journey is just so much more exciting than all the intellectual stuff. So in India, I felt that I finished with this. I will never become an intellectual again. Of course, I was too young to know to never say never.
Right. And how old were you when you went to India?
Oh, I was 35.
Okay, so still quite young.
Yeah.
And then how long were you there for?
Half a year.
Half a year. And then how big is your meditation practice from that initial upbringing still today? Are you still practicing?
Yes, but not as much the regular morning or evening meditation. I brought meditation to my daily living. So a meditative awareness is just part of my life, part of how I work, how I am with when I am with people.
That's awesome. And then, so in one of your posts, we were talking earlier, and you brought it up, is every year you hold a kind of personal ceremony or a ritual of sorts of recasting your circle of life work, kind of like what is important to you. And I'll just briefly go through, the 4 of them that you mentioned, and then we can dive in. But evolutionary Sherpa, social acupuncturist, basket weaver, and a future chronicler. So how can you talk to a little bit more about those things, of not just the ritual, but then also what this year has mean? Because you said it's going to change in December again.
Of course. Well, let me step back one to honor my teachers.
Of course.
Who introduced me to the medicine wheel during my 20 years in California. The last 10 years I've been in training by the elders of the tribe, Wind Eagle and the late Rainbow Hawk, who taught the earth wisdom. So the medicine wheel comes from the Native American tradition, and I patterned my circle of life work on the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. So those 4 aspects of my creative energies that you just named, they correspond to 4 specific directions on the medicine wheel, which is the compass, the directions of the compass. So they are associated with some distinctive archetypal energies. That just to give you some background. That I wrote about how everybody can cast a circle of life work, but this needs to be related with reverence, because it's not a technique. It's like really contemplating one's life and directions in which the creative juices wants to flow or are flowing. and then placing them on the four directions. So that's the background to your questions. Now, regarding the specifics, which last time was casted December 28, 2018. So the basket weaver is about it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for weaving a deep basket of understanding what drives the evolution of consciousness and the evolution of society. So you can think of it, it's a metaphor for being a researcher. And when I'm looking forward in 2020, the way in which the basket weaver is amplifying this stream within my life work is, my plan is establishing a center of research for civilization renewal as part of or associated with the Campus Co-Evolve or virtual university. So that's about the basket weaver. The future chroniclers, that has to do with bringing the memories of the future into the present.
Memories of the future into the present. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like developing and sharing the art of receiving and transmitting evolutionary epiphanies. It's not like prophesizing. It's more like learning from the future as it emerges through our actions in the present. So being a chronicler of the future is also informed and inspired by my science fiction.
I was just about to say, that has to be it.
Yeah. The social acupuncturist is, the acupuncturist, what he or she does is with the needle releasing energies that are blocked. And the social acupuncturist part of me is identifying where energies are blocked in the social body, in the body of an organization or community or social systems, and designing and executing laser-like precise intervention for releasing those energies. And then the evolution Sherpa is, the Sherpa is in excursions and climbing a mountain, the guy who's been there before and
carries a lot of the weight.
Yeah. and helping the people who are coming. So that's a metaphor for being a mentor to visionary leaders and also young, high potential, emergent leaders.
So to recap, then you would be a person that has been there before and mentoring others, that then is pinpoint in their releasing of pressure that maybe needs to, by the idea that we're trying to do the memories of the future in the present, but then also throughout this, you're weaving this deep understanding of everything. So that's a good highlight of all that.
Yeah, that's a good recap. Yeah. They all relate. They all related. They are all supporting each other.
Sure. I mean, well, that's an integrated approach, as you said, because that's the entire. What is the technical or the name that the Native Americans used to use for what is the wheel?
Medicine wheel.
Medicine wheel. Yes, exactly. And then so I'm assuming. So how has this year been? You know, we're in October. How has the last 10 months been in this journey for you in those kind of specifics?
The last 10 months.
Yeah. Well,
so this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, what would your progress report be for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I'm having a lot of fun with the future chronicler, because it's writing not from my mind, but writing with my body. So what it means that when I'm publishing blogs from the year of 2029, those are not those blogs are not just fantasizing, but I'm kind of this difficult to describe, but I feel embodied that future space inside me that I am writing from, and that makes the writing very easy. It's flowing, and I can send you the URL of some of the articles that I published, and the evolutionary Sherpa that's also amplified its activities, because I have a number of mentoring clients, but the main thing this year for my status update is the establishment of Campus Co-Evolve, because I feel that it's not enough to have one Sherpa helping the seekers, but I feel that we need to cultivate, develop, educate, train tens of thousands of facilitators of profound transformation, and that's what my aim is with Campus Co-Evolve.
And yeah, we'll talk more about Campus Co-Evolve a little bit later. But going back to your writing, I mean, you've published many articles journal articles at academia.edu, and also started a magazine. It's called Enlivening Edge for next stage organizations. Can you talk more about like writing in a sense, maybe not 2029, but just the act of writing about, you know, theories and ideas, and then into kind of practical things to help others?
Yeah, the Enlivening Edge, I founded it as a newsletter in 2015 in response to the publication of Reinventing Organizations by Frederick Laloux, that I felt at that time that it was the very cutting edge of organization design, creating next stage organizations based on the three breakthroughs that Frederick discovered. Evolution, purpose, wholeness, and self-management. And he was a McKinsey consultant, and he did research, and the book reflects the research. And so I was so inspired by that I felt that I really should support his work, and the best way to support it is with what I know how to do, build a movement. And Gandhi was talking about that. If you want a social movement, you need to have a newspaper.
Right. I did see that, yeah.
So nowadays, if he was alive, he would probably say, you need to create a website.
Or a media organization.
So that's what Enlivening Edge became. It started out as a newsletter, then became a magazine, a media hub, and we published more than 800 articles, all news and views on the edge of what next stage organizations are doing, how they are doing it. And I've been writing a column and contributed with content, republishing articles that I like. As I'm surfing the web and pick up good stuff, and also other colleagues in Enlivening Edge, we are both producing original content and republishing, curating basically what is happening in the movement. So that was my work with Enlivening Edge. Now it's more focused, what I'm doing is more focused on Campus Co-Evolve.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then so just quickly though, like over that last, 4 years, that must have been a lot of key learnings though. What is the one thing that you've learned that it needs to switch to academia, and then that's why we're in Campus Co-Evolve? Or like, are you just kind of taking a step back and letting it run by itself and then just contributing content when you can?
I appreciate your question because it helps me explain a little bit how I am moving from one project to another project. Mm-hmm. It's not that I get bored with what I did before.
Sure.
It's more like personally, when I learned from the project I've been doing what I felt I needed to learn, like how to create a magazine, mm-hmm. I would be ready to move on, but not yet. I also need a pool from the future that typically comes from recognizing that what I am doing now, why it is not sufficient, why it is not the best that I can do. And how I define the best what I can do is, every change agent is trying to have an impact. Mm-hmm. An evolutionary change agent is somebody who trying to have as large impact as possible.
Well, you're evolving with this, though.
Yeah.
And this is it's not a set in stone thing.
Exactly. And so writing and publishing is not enough. We need to educate transformation facilitators. That's how I moved to Campus Co-Evolve.
That's great. So we'll talk obviously about Campus Co-Evolve in a minute, but right now we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back more from George Poor. Hi, and welcome back to Eclectic Spacewalk Conversations, where again I'm joined by George Poor, founder and academic dean of Campus Co-Evolve. So George, before Campus Co-Evolve, you founded an organization called Community Intelligence, which is, quote, enabling the next stage of development in people and organization. So what is community, or what is collective intelligence?
Community Intelligence, that's the brand, the name of the company. The company I founded with friends back in 2002, mm-hmm. when I moved back from California back to Europe. And it is a transformation agency helping the development of next stage, as you mentioned, in people and organizations. We've been having clients from all over the world. But community intelligence is not only the brand, it's not only the name of the company, but also a meme, a concept that has to do with my belief that you will have a scoop here, because I have not yet mentioned this publicly.
Okay.
This shocking thing that from an evolutionary perspective, the individual is not the most important unit of cognition anymore. The most important unit of cognition is the community.
The environment, if you will. Or is
the collective.
Oh, okay. Got it.
The group of people who are thinking and learning and changing and working together. The reason why it is so, because no matter how genius you are, you cannot really fathom what on earth is happening.
Especially today's day.
It's just so much more bigger, more complex. From the perspective of evolution, the best chance that humans have to have a consciousness of what is happening is the collective consciousness, is the collective intelligence. So that's why I'm saying that community intelligence is both the brand and, in a broader sense, it's also the meme that kind of synonymous with collective intelligence. But collective intelligence is a broader category, a broader concept. I started to write and teach and consult about collective intelligence in the late 80s, when it was a novel concept. Now, if you Google collective intelligence, you will get 2.5 million hits.
Oh, wow.
In less than a half second.
Right.
So isn't it interesting why it is so, why certain memes are taking off a certain time.
Right.
So my take on that is that when society is going through a crisis, and it's clear that one era is ending, and the new has yet to born, and nobody knows where we are heading. So there are lots of theories about the collapse, that everything will just fall apart. Some people are putting their energies not on the total breakdown, but on the breakthrough to a new civilization. I belong to that group. So when the crisis happened, and we are in a crisis, that's quite obvious, and when people don't know where all this moving towards, that's the time when collective intelligence has become important, because that's the best hope that we can discover something. What is this about? So that's my take on why 2.5 million hits. But of course, there is also other reasons grounded in the economic system, that capitalism seems to exhaust its useful shelf life, and it needs to renewed, reinvented. So what is happening in businesses and organizations, that once the leadership understand that in the conditions of galloping complexity, the leadership team, even the smartest guys on the top, they just don't have enough what it takes to respond to the rapidly changing market conditions. So they need to mobilize the collective intelligence of the people. That's why the MIT Center about collective intelligence, and so it became a main topic for management disciplines.
And then you mentioned in one of your posts, organizational theories interest me only if they can be tested in practice and are improving the lives of people while moving the organization that they work with to its next stage of capabilities. And I think that's so important with so much theory is out there, with so without as much real world use or applications. And you just mentioned a lot of either managers or directors, maybe not taking a systems thinking viewpoint. One of our, one of my, I think my second post was systems thinking. And can you just talk a little bit more about those two interplays? Because it seems like to get to any breakthrough, you really need to understand where you just were. And to understand where you just were or where you are, it really has to have a holistic systems thinking approach. And I know you have a quote that you want to talk about in a second, but so we'll end with that. But talk a little bit about the interplay of systems thinking and organizational theories from theory to practice.
Yes, systems thinking has been around for a couple of decades, and realizing that everything is a system is not very helpful in itself, because organizational systems are more like living systems. They are more akin to complex adaptive systems, which is different from the systems of machinery, right?
Right.
So organizational systems as living systems, they interact with each other, and they are in continuous change. That's why I would like to share with you a quote from a person who I consider the real most important thought leader of our times, particularly related to systems thinking, because she is upgrading or thinking about systems. So this quote will tell you about the essence of also what I am standing for. So her name is Nora Bateson, and
she's in California, right? Or she's in the United States, I think?
No, she is frequently going there, but she lives in Sweden.
Oh, okay. Because I want to say that I know her in this Twitter kind of sphere and stuff like that. Yeah, interesting.
Getting more and more popularity. She's the daughter of Gregory Bateson, who was one of the foremost systems thinkers.
Oh, okay. So it comes in the family. Okay. What's the
Nora
quote?
says that everything is always learning from everything else. Symathesis is a Greek word that he made up for, it means learning together.
Say it again.
Symathesis.
Okay. Symathesis. And then that's what again?
Learning together.
Okay. Symathesis, learning together. Got it.
So learning in symathesis is the perpetual processes of positioning and repositioning, calibrating, shifting, and responding to responses within context of multiple simultaneous interactions. So why is that important? Because I know that it's quite a mouthful, but in reality, when you have a relationship, a good relationship is a living, changing, moment to moment. You guys are learning together, not necessarily in the classic sense of learning, but picking up signals from each other and responding to. And of course, that is true also for not only friendships, but larger systems as well. So Nora's contribution to this new wave of systems thinking is the focus on mutual learning in different contexts. So she created this methodology, the Warm Data Lab. I don't want to go into much details. I'm fortunate that I got in training with him and became a certified facilitator of warm data labs. And I just wanted to mention, because systems thinking is not what it used to be. It's not our dad's systems thinking nowadays.
Well, right, and it kind of seems like you're alluding to more of a static, systems thinking, to then more of an adaptive, evolutionary. So then that kind of brings us into the next point of your evolutionary mentoring is a dialogical process aimed at developing your capabilities for evolutionary leadership and mentoring. So why is it seems like you're kind of going around the whole word, but it's just evolution. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah. When people ask me, what is your core belief? What is the highest, broadest framing of how you perceive the world? My answer is, it is, we are evolving. Nothing is permanent, and it's not only changing, but we are moving towards not a goal, because evolution doesn't have a goal. If it had, then if it achieved the goal, then it's the end.
It's done.
End of story.
End of story.
No, it doesn't have a goal, but it has a direction. And if you just consider that how life came into being in the ocean with very small, very simple living cells connecting, and then more complex organism. And here we are, human beings with our brain, which is one of the most complex phenomena in the known universe. So it's not exaggeration to say that the direction of evolution is towards more complexity, more harmony, because our body is hanging together. So there's a harmony among all these tissues and organs that are working together. And when society can learn the same, that's, I believe, the direction of our social evolution.
Right, and it's not just the individuals. It's really society as a whole is also evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to see social evolution, because evolution is not going in a straight line. So there are detours, and there are aborted evolutionary experiments. So the whole Trump phenomenon can be a detour, but it's never by accident. What seems to be like a detour from the perspective of a longer time frame, it may, as much as I don't have a fondness for the imposter in the White House, but from a longer perspective, I can see that that was possibly the best thing that could have happened, because it evoked new responses to the neoliberal nightmare.
A shock to the system, if you will. Yeah. And so we've been talking about the importance of societal intelligence and kind of the evolution of that. How important are the commons, and maybe what are the commons?
Well, commons is a term that's used in a variety of meaning. The first meaning, so when you say commons, people first they will think about the forest, the air, the water, the natural commons that doesn't belong to an owner, but the air belongs to everyone. The oceans belongs to everyone. So these are the natural commons. But commons as a socio-economic entity also means groups of people, communities, groups of people who come together to collectively develop, create, and govern the resources essential to their well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So you can think of cooperatives as kind of commons, or comes closer to what we mean by commons. But commons is not focused on ownership. It's focused on stewardship.
Mm.
So it's recognizing that what is important is not that we own the land, but we take care of the land, that we are stewarding, creating the best enabling conditions for the common good. So in terms of organizational development, commons can also be a form of organization design that is beyond what Lalo is talking in terms of self-management, because self-management is not necessarily questioning the dominant mode of production, where the producers don't define the finality of the production.
Mm-hmm.
What we are producing, why we are producing it, how are we going to allocate the surplus, the benefits of the production. All that is becoming the subject with the commons.
Mm-hmm.
So the commons is a more evolved version of organizational design than self-management.
Right, and it seems like that's an upgrade, or it seems like it's taking in more of what actually is out there. It's not just worrying about here and maybe just here, but actually, like you said, how, why. It's deeper questions.
Yes, that's true.
So one of the things that we've kind of glossed or talked about, evolutionary mentoring, commons, etc., is, you've had a rich history of mentorship, advising, and teaching. How has that changed you personally through that? Because one of the things that I've kind of learned in life is to learn something, the best way to learn something in depth is to teach it. So it seems that your own personality of knowing things has probably garnered a lot more gravitas, etc., by teaching, and then it through and through. So how has that changed you personally over the years?
Well, I started mentoring organizational leaders back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I was a different person, and what I supported them is to become more effective in what they are doing.
Mm-hmm. And effective by what definition exactly? Or, obviously each individual person, that would be different, but but effective is the key word.
Exactly, to do better what they are doing without questioning of their personal development and their worldviews, the finality of the production of. So then many of them got into midlife crisis, very successful executives, and then they start wondering about the meaning of why.
Sure.
What is there not something more to life than having an executive mansion and a great car and a good salary? So as I evolved, I also shifted my focus in my mentoring work towards people who are committed to personal evolution and committed to evolving their organizations. So that became more central to my work over the years. And also you asked me how this work affected me. Well, there is no good mentoring but cross-mentoring. Cross-mentoring means that in every mentoring relationship, I am learning as much as my mentoring client. What we are learning is different. She is learning what she needs to become. And I am learning how I can become a better Sherpa for her or for him. And I'm learning that from the explicit and implicit feedback that I am receiving. Implicit feedback also seeing the person's journey, how she is doing her work, her relationship, how much or how little the work that she's doing with me contributing to it. That gives me feedback to how can I become a better mentor.
And that's not a one-way street. It is a two-way.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So those are great things. So when we come back from a short break, we're going to talk about Campus Co-Evolve. Stay with us. Welcome back to Eclectic Spacewalk Conversations. I'm still joined by George Poor, founder and academic dean of Campus Co-Evolve, whose purpose is to, quote, to trigger viral waves of new capabilities for facilitating profound transformation on 3 scales: personal, organizational, and societal. So why did you start Campus Co-Evolve, George?
Well, because I mentioned earlier that everything is moving towards collapse, according to some people. Others are betting on not a breakdown, but breakthrough. And many of my friends perceive the world, including me, that everything is going worse and worse and better and faster at the same time.
Right.
And that is a sure recipe for chaos.
Sure.
And chaos is not necessarily good or bad. It is just
chaos.
Chaos. And what it is, what it will become, is up to us.
Very good point.
And whether the outcome is the collapse of the civilization as we knew it, infrastructures, all that will bring unimaginable suffering to massive scale, or whether it will open a new chapter of human history with the brightest possibility for prosperity and global well-being for all. So it's really up to us. But it's not up to us. What I mean is, people who may listen to this podcast may think, what do you mean up to us? I can't do anything about that. And if they say that, they are right.
Right, they make their own.
Right. But if they say that, yes, I want to do something and I will make a difference, then again, they are right also. But just how that difference for a positive future can be made, it's clearly no single individual can cause a lasting positive impact, a difference that makes a difference. For that, we need deep change, transformation, evolutionary transformation at the scale of our individual psyche, individual choices, as well as our organizational structures and processes, and the large social systems like education and healthcare and governance and military. All those systems need to go through deep transformation to meet the new challenges. So that's why I'm saying that we are not in a era of changes, but more like a change of eras. And how we are going to get out on the other end of the chaos will depend largely on how many well-trained facilitators of this deep transformation exist in the world. And so I want to contribute to the development of the capabilities of evolutionary leadership that is needed at this time. And I learned, so I'm walking my talk. I know that I cannot make that difference, but if we get together with colleagues and create, that's why we created Campus Co-evolve. I couldn't have created by myself. It was my brainchild, but it took a little village coming together to raise that brainchild. And we are still at the very beginning, very early stage in the process.
Yeah, this is only this year, right?
Yeah, it's only 7-month-old baby, so it's not walking yet, not talking yet.
Right, still learning the world.
Yeah.
So, but in all that, which you just kind of glossed or kind of painted a broad brushstroke of, is the first pillar of the 5 pillars of Campus Co-evolve is holistic. You really want to take a holistic approach to things, and so the other 4 pillars, is transformative, praxis-driven, experiential, and community-focused. How are those 5 pillars different in that I guess you could say developing the brainchild as it gets older?
Yeah, well, how it is different from traditional institutions of higher education, that's where I would start, because people go to a university and they get a degree, they consume knowledge, but they don't necessarily get support to their development as a human being. So the holistic dimension of our educational credo refers to that we care for the whole person. So, for example, one of our courses, the 4 Rivers, is our signature course because it is expressing the integral holistic framework or full spectrum education that starts with awareness. The 4 rivers are the rivers of awareness, behavior, community building, and designing with complexity, the ABCD rivers. And that's not all what it is to holistic education, but that's my current framing. And we are at the 2nd cohort that just started now in a week ago.
Right.
And So the other qualities of our education expressed in our educational credo, they also make Campus Co-Evolve a quite distinctive new form of higher education for change makers. For example, if you think of praxis-driven, that implies that each participant in our courses comes with a real-world project to which he or she needs to apply the learning from our courses. And it's also linked with the community focused, which means that there's a strong emphasis on peer-to-peer learning. So we have the reverse classroom where the participants present their discoveries that they made by working with the assignments from the course. So we developed a quite distinctive andragogy, adult education methodology that our educational credo encapsulates.
And then, as you mentioned, this is the second iteration or the second cohort that's gone through Four Rivers. But then also, the next class that is coming up in the next couple of weeks is a transformative media creation and reception course. And that's for people who want to learn how to use media for supporting transformation in self, others, and the world. It will illuminate the comprehensive toolkit for designing media to catalyze healing, personal growth, and the evolution of consciousness on the individual and collective level. And that's, how we even met. We met on Twitter. Yes. We had our, discourse on that first. And so, using different means of media is becoming even more important in today's thing. I know we talked about Gandhi, about if today he would maybe not make a newspaper, but a media company. Social media, but media in general is a powerful, powerful tool. So I guess talk about the other course a little bit about what that's going to, and I even, which I will be taking part in, so talk about that.
Yeah, so I envision that we will have two types of courses over time. The signature or foundational courses. If we were a traditional university, I would call that the undergraduate or entry level, that all the learners
general education.
Yes. And then there is the specialization.
Yes.
And so the transformative media is the first example of a specialization course where we bring to change makers very specific domains of capabilities that we think as pivotal for change facilitators. And clearly, the creation of transformative media experiences it's like having literacy. The literacy of reading and writing was essential in the 19th and 20th century for the people who were working for a better world. Today, using media is just as important as reading and writing was before.
And so much more that we were even talking that, Generation Z or all of these other, kids that are coming up. I mean, I would consider myself one of the last generations to have before the internet. I grew up and I remember getting a DSL modem. I remember, the cable modem and stuff. And there was a specific change. I remember that. But then now the kids that are born today, I mean, they have a phone right here for their entire lives. They're jacked in to the internet with Snapchat and TikTok and stuff. So, it's only going to be coming more so, the media literacy, as you say.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that makes Campus Co-Evolve really interesting and different is that not just we live in this media kind of literacy economy, but we also live in a gift economy. And Campus Co-Evolve is donation based instead of set tuition fees. So can you talk about that because that really is a different and transformative pillar, as you will, of difference between yourself and maybe traditional higher education institutions.
Yeah, that it's both economic model and it's also our philosophy in action.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by the later, that we want to make our transformative education available to all who can benefit from it. So that's why we didn't set a tuition fee, to make sure that people with lower income, particularly people from the global south,
especially,
can also join our courses. So we also need to think of the financial viability of the campus, because it takes a lot of resources to generate the courses, maintain and improve the platform. So we do have a level of recommended donation, and we do accept people who cannot pay the recommended level, and we also say that pay what you can and a little bit more. Or
because it is an investment in themselves as well.
Yes, and we don't accept people who say that they can't pay anything, because that's very close to be a free rider. Because even if you are an unemployed person, you still go to a movie or have a coffee somewhere. So even a symbolic payment is expressing the respect for the work that going into the education. But we don't have really many problems with that. People are giving, and they tend to give generously, like in the first cohort, a couple of people gave much more than what we ask for, because the gift economy includes also that you can pay less or more.
It's both sides of that.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, you also are kind of setting a marker or a benchmark.
Yes. Yes, just to give a sense of what it takes to produce.
Of course. And that's a great philosophy and actually in practice. So I applaud you for that. And so this will be kind of the last question we talk about Campus Cohort. What has the reception been? What is you've had one cohort, finished and done from people all over the world, China, Switzerland, I think. So what has the reception been from the first cohort, and then now, you're in your second cohort, and then now even possibly doing, your first specialization course in media?
Well, we got raving testimonials from the graduates of the first cohort. You can look it up on the website, but people are saying that was a life-changing experience for them, and they came to take the course thinking that it will be a normal thing where they can consume knowledge, and then they discovered themselves as co-producers of knowledge. So we are very happy with the feedback that we are receiving.
And one of that kind of comes back to the first 5 pillars, the holistic, is that you guys are focused on maybe not the educational aspect of someone's being, but their actual holistic human being. Is that it's not just about the education, it's really making them feel they have meaning in their lives, they can change.
Yeah, because a big part of that is that when they come to Campus Coevolve, what they receive is not only education, but becoming part of a community, a community, mutually supportive relationships that many of that still exist after the course is over. So it's the quality of relationships that people have a chance to develop during the course, which goes beyond what is a holistic education.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so last question, and this is what I ask all my guests, because the overview effect is a cornerstone philosophy of Eclectic Spacewalk. If you were at the International Space Station, or say the moon, with the whole world looking up at you, what would you say?
Oh, what a wonderful question. Well, what I would say is don't look up. Look around. Look around and find your fellow human beings. Find your tribe. Find your friends, family, people whom you truly care for. And show that you care, because it is the mutually caring relationships that is the foundation from which we can build the new world. That's what I would say. Don't look up, look around.
Yeah, don't look at me, look at everyone else.
Yeah.
Okay, that's beautiful. So in closing, we're going to end with a quote from 19th century journalist and poet Guillaume Apollinaire, that's on your website as well. So, come to the edge, they said. I can't, I'm scared. Come to the edge, they said. I can't, I'm scared. Come to the edge, they said. I came, they heartened me, we flew. So I hope we can fly together moving forward, George.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming on Conversations, George. And until next time, Ad Astra.